Okay, today I'm doing an alternator replacement because my alternator was causing my headlights to dim and brighten as I go, and I could tell my voltage gauge was bouncing around as I hit the gas, hit the throttle, and let off the throttle. So it definitely needs a new voltage regulator. I just replaced the whole alternator just because it's I'm going in there. The alternator's original, so needs a new one anyway. Anyway, so that's the I got the alternator off of Amazon. I'll have a link for that in the description, and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be taking the alternator out today, and I took the fan, the radiator and everything out, and the fan out just so I can access it. I needed to replace the radiator anyway, so it's not really a big deal. Thought it'd be perfect time to take the alternator out. All you do is crank that tensioner counterclockwise, and it'll let you take that belt right off. Then the power steering pump has 3 bolts holding it on. Once the belt's out, you'll see those 3 bolts you gotta remove. And the reason you take the power steering pump off is because the alternator, the pulley gets in the way of the alternator, so it's got to come out. It doesn't need to be completely removed, but you just need to unbolt it and sort of move it out of the way so you can get the alternator out. Okay, you can move the pulley around. Now that the belt's not on there, you can move it and get yourself access to those bolts. And again, you're just moving it out of the way slightly. There's 2 little pipes at the top that are for the vacuum lines that sort of keep it from moving. So if you pull those out, it's a little bit easier to move it out of the way. As you can see, I didn't move it very far for you to get to the bolt. That top bolt and that bottom bolt are the only 2 that hold the alternator on. So it's really easy once you get those 2 out. The bottom one has a nut on the back that's kind of hard to get to. So that's like an angle that you can see sort of how much access you have. And once you get those bolts out, the alternator just pops right out. You have a connector on the back. So pull that out. And you got I believe it was a 12mm bolt on the back. 12mm nut that you have to remove. And that's the only connections to the alternator. And you can see I have a piece of cardboard blocking the condenser from getting scratched up. So I didn't realize this, but it's a Toyota original alternator. Bolt, or the shaft that the bolt screws onto on the new one is a lot smaller than the old one. I guess they decided to cheap out and make it a little smaller. I don't think it really affects anything, but I found a new nut to put on there. So the alternator has like 200-something thousand miles on it, and it was still working. It was just giving the voltage regulator wasn't adjusting very well. It's good to keep the nuts from other builds because you can reuse them. Alright, so you want to clean off the terminal and get all the rust off of there. And then just screw it back on and tighten it down. I got some dielectric grease to put on there just to keep the terminal from corroding any further. If you have anything to hold the alternator up from the bottom, or a string or something, it might be nice. It was getting a little tedious holding it up while I was doing all this. There's already some dielectric grease or something inside the connector already, so I didn't need to add anything else. I guess they came from the factory with some grease in the inside to keep it from corroding. But I did add some dielectric grease on the back of the connector, just so when I put the cover back on, it sort of keeps it tight from any dust or dirt from getting in there. Okay, set up a little washer on top of the nut that should hold it in place, so when I go to install the nut again, it doesn't keep spinning. And go ahead and tack that in place and see how it works out. I'm probably gonna have to adjust it a little bit. I think we'll be alright. Got a little washer tacked on there. Get the bottom bolt on there. Got the nut on there. You can see the washer in the corner of the screen. It's holding it in place. I was able to tighten it down easily. Now all I gotta do is the top nut. Torque that down to, I believe, 20. I forget what the torque spec was for that. But surprisingly, the torque spec for the power steering pump isn't much. I think it was only like 11 foot-pounds, which, if you know anything about torque specs, that's really low. So be careful and don't over tighten the power steering bolts, because they don't really have a very high torque spec. Alright, that's pretty much it. Then you're putting the belt all back on. Getting the belt on is a little tricky. You gotta make sure you have it on there right and in the right order. So just loop it around everything. Follow the diagram, and it should look just like this. Then you just put a ratchet on the end of that tensioner and pull it counterclockwise and slap the belt back on.